Hi, welcome. This is the 746.4X podcast. This is episode 4. I am recording on an extremely dreary Saturday morning. Well, no, it's afternoon now. I just slept really late and then went to the farmer's market. So, welcome. Okay, so I don't even know how to start today. It took actually really a lot of mental energy to sit down and do this. I kept making excuses like, you gotta clean the house, you gotta set up your sewing room, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. Well, none of that happened. I chose the least scary looking part of the house. That's what you guys can see. It's lovely what you can do when you set up stuff on your camera or on your phone. So yeah, I'm actually really, really excited because I have gotten quite a few new subscribers, which is absolutely lovely, and thank you all so much. And I want to thank Eva for the Charm of It podcast, who mentioned me in her last episode, and she has the best podcast. So I was very, very overwhelmed by that lovely mention. So thank you, Eva. I love your podcast. I'm so glad I found you. Eva has beautiful knits, like the most beautiful knits I've ever seen, I think. Like the cabling and intricate stuff that I just have never even attempted. And she makes it up herself. Like, she sort of takes a pattern and just goes, I'm gonna do whatever I want, which is what I always aspire to do. And I've never felt that confident in doing it, or I get kind of grouchy and I'm like, math, no, I'm just going to start knitting and see what happens. So she makes beautiful, beautiful things, and everybody, if you're not watching her podcast already, please do, because it's beautiful. Okay, so welcome. Did I say my name? I can't remember. I'm Barbie. My handle across social media, including Ravelry and Instagram, is Library Maker. Which, yeah, you can find me pretty much everywhere under that name. I keep getting distracted. That's okay. Let's talk about knitting. I know that's what I'm supposed to be here talking about. So, knitting it is. I have succumbed to the cast-on-itis. It's been a few weeks since I've podcast. Most of the projects y'all have seen before still are works in progress, but I was just getting fed up with myself and angry. I don't have anything finished right now, though I'm very close on one thing. And sometimes if I'm working on stuff and all the yarn is tiny and it feels like it's taking forever, I'll cast on something that I think is going to move a little quicker. But then that'll reach a point where I can't finish it, but hopefully I'll go back, finish. Stuff does get finished, usually deadline around the holidays. So always in like November and December I start finishing things, like madness. Oh well, works in progress till then. Okay, so what have I done so far? I have finished a sock, which, is the finished sock in here? No, the finished sock isn't. I don't know where the finished sock is. I finished one of my play school playmat socks. Oh, that's just sticking out there. Here's the second one. I did Fish Lips Kiss Heel again, which turned out so much better. It fits a whole lot nicer on the one that's finished, which is around here somewhere. As I said, I didn't really clean or pay much attention before hopping over here, and I figured if I didn't do it now, I'd lose my nerve. So that's okay. Yeah, I think I like these socks. They're a little small. I couldn't tell when to stop for the toes, but I think I'm gonna wear them anyways and just let them stretch out, as socks tend to do. The yarn I'm using is Patons Croix, which I got with a Joann's gift certificate that I got for the holidays last year. This is fine yarn for, when I mean fine, I mean like mediocre yarn. Not fine as in grandiose fine, beautiful lacework, but like mediocre fine. I'm enjoying it. I like the color and the pattern, and this is not Patons Croix, this is sort of mini skein I got at the yarn store here in Richmond. They had some sitting in a basket. I think like Seeds of Change maybe? Not sure. That's the same for this too. And they were just like little sampler things, and I definitely want to go find some larger skeins because I like that a lot more than I like the Patons Croix, which is just, it feels like you got it at Joann's. But I do like the sort of stripiness. The stripiness is not very consistent though. Like the other sock, even though the black bands ended around the same place, none of the little brown speckles ever line up sort of like I would think they would. And I don't know if it's just I'm not using the exact perfect number of stitches, but I've seen a lot of self-striping sock yarns on other people's projects, and it tends to look like these sort of faux Fair Isles tend to land a little better so that they look more like faux Fair Isle instead of just like dirty yarn. It's okay. I think I got enough for 2 pair of socks for like $15 on the gift certificate, so that's a lot of yarn for that much. Oh, and I bought like 2 of these, one for each sock, and the other sock did not use nearly this much. I think I have some trekking yarn that's just like a solid white that I'm gonna do the Pixel Stitch sock from Pearl Soho, which is just a stranded colorwork, checkerboard colorwork that I've done with like leftover sock scraps before to sort of make whether I get only 1 sock out of what I have left or I get 2, and then I'll just have a drawer of mix and match Pixel Stitch socks, which I think is really cool. So far I've done that once, but I'm going to do that with the leftovers from here after I put at least 1 square in my sock yarn blanket. I don't think this is like fancy, nice enough yarn to be sending as a mini swap. I don't know. I could. I've gotten other yarn that is unlabeled and doesn't tell me what it is. It very well could be this, and I love it for my sock yarn blanket, but I just probably won't send it. I'll just try and use it up or use it for waste yarn for something. So yeah, those are my play school socks. I'm not really following a pattern. I knit until I felt like it was long enough. I did some ribbing at the top, did the Fish Lips Kiss heel, and then started on the foot. And I'm going to make them match in size, even though the other one is a little bit too small, because otherwise it'll drive me crazy that they don't match. And then, oh, orange toe again. These are so close to being done. Hopefully next time I get up the Nerved podcast, I will have them as finished objects. Have I shown a finished object yet? Yeah, I have. Okay, so I haven't just been showing a multitude of newly cast on objects. But yeah, yay socks. I'm not a sock knitter. Like, there are sock knitters that knit copious amounts of socks. I think I'm like a 3 pair of socks a year sock knitter. I do have some vague plans to do. I have yarn. I bought yarn for it. A couple of pair of worsted weight socks. One pair for me because I want them so badly, but also a pair for my mom and maybe a pair for my grandmom if my grandmom's interested. My mom definitely. I knit a pair of, it's the Coin and Moss sock pattern. I gave them to my sister for the Yuletide holidays. And I hope she's wearing them. I think they look lovely. Those are made out of fisherman's wool, so I told her they were slippers. Don't go walking in the snow and don't stick them in the dryer, because they will felt. So she's good. She knows wool. She knows not to do stuff. But they're more just like lay in bed socks. But I bought some superwash to make my mom and me and maybe my grandmom a pair of these coin and moss socks. They're lovely. They have these cute little cables that sort of run down the sides with a double seed stitch or moss stitch panel down the front. And I felt like they had a traditional gusset heel, and I felt like that fit really well. Because don't tell my sister, I tried them on. I didn't wear them around, but I like put them on my feet for a good 10 minutes to make sure they were warm enough. And they were very warm. So she should be having warm feet right now. But so I have plans to make some of those, and maybe I'll do that instead of another sock weight, fingering weight pair, because they take forever. I really am into, I am a progress knitter. I think I waffle back and forth in my head because I do need to constantly be knitting. I need to be doing that process of knitting something. But if I don't see progress at the end of it, I get kind of frustrated. So I think while I waffle back and forth, I pay way more attention to what the end goal is. So, and I get frustrated if I don't get it quickly enough, and then I stop working on it and work on something else, which then defeats the purpose, because then I still don't have the finished object that I want. My brain works in mysterious ways. But yeah, so those are probably the only thing that you've previously seen. And I promise, I think this is almost exactly as far along on them as I was the other sock. And I don't know where it is, but no, I promise. This is the second one. I'll put them on Instagram. Yeah, Instagram. That'll be what I'm not telling stories. So yeah. Yeah. Okay. I have lovely tea today. I'm trying a new thing where I'm gonna stretch my coffee budget a little bit, because I don't like drinking cheap coffee, so I've been buying the expensive stuff. But I think on the days where I don't actually have to be out of the house real quickly and need that like injection of caffeine into my veins, I'm gonna be drinking tea. Today is the first day. I think I'm gonna need another cup after this one though to get the same level of cognizance as I usually get with my 2 cups of coffee instead of 2 cups of tea. But that's okay. It tastes good. Just like coffee. They both taste good. And I tend not to drink anything too fancy. I just get Twinings, English breakfast or Irish breakfast. I sort of switch back and forth between the two. It's simple. I don't like flowery teas. I don't like it. Well, I have a lot of allergies to pretty much anything that flowers. Most of the time. Some stuff I do eat fruits and vegetables, but I have a lot of allergies to florally things, and that I can't have that in my tea. So yeah, mostly just drink black tea. Okay, let's see, more knitting. Here's the other thing I cast on because I'm terrible. Well, not terrible, just impatient. Okay, so I started... Focusing. Oh, it is. Oh, that looks pretty on the camera. This is the Sunlight Shawl for Sad People pattern that's been around for quite a while. Sylvia Bobilvia, I think is the designer's name. She's awesome. I've followed her for a long time on like Instagram and just Ravelry and stuff, and she's really cool, and I love that her patterns are very accessible, and that while she does have paid patterns if you're really in a tight spot and need to knit something for a gift, she always writes on there, just message her, which I feel like I would always, if I can't afford a pattern, I'd find a pattern that's already, well, I don't know. I would then use maybe a pattern I already bought. I do like to make an effort to pay the designers, because I can't write patterns. I need to be paid for what I'm using. Otherwise, it's just not very fair. But anyways, I can see why this one's a free pattern. This is a free pattern. It's basically your top-down triangle shawl. You start little garter stitch tab right in the middle, start increasing out, add some lovely purl bumps, which, is that picking up? Oh, it is. Lovely purl bumps, wherever you feel. That's all. Look up the pattern. It's well written. If you're feeling nervous about making a shawl for the first time, this is a really good way to make you not nervous. You can use any weight of yarn with whatever needles. Just get a fabric that you like. And it's beautiful, and she's a really great designer. She has a lot of other stuff that is totally worth, her patterns are totally pay for them, they're great. The Lonely Tree shawl, I think, might have been one of the first lace pieces I ever knit, and she designed that, and I love that one too. So yeah, I just had to cast it on. I was having a really, I get migraines a lot, and I think I was having a really bad migraine day, and I had the yarn balled up already for something else that I just didn't have the energy to cast on, and I couldn't deal with too tiny needles. I couldn't, when I get migraines, it's like lights out. I get myself to work and I function throughout work, and as soon as I get home, it's like, nope, putting something over my face. But then I get bored and I still want to knit because I'm not sleepy. I just can't keep my eyes open and I can't focus on anything. So this was I have a migraine, I still need to knit shawl. That's not its official name. I have a lovely owl stitch marker that I got in a swap. Lovely little owl. I don't know if it's gonna focus. It's cute though. So yeah, oh, the yarn. I should tell you what yarn I'm using. It is, I'm alternating 2 different skeins, which these are the 2 different skeins. It's really good that I'm alternating them. I didn't even notice it until I like rewound them last night. I wound them with my ball winder, but they have silk in them, and my ball winder is really terrible. It does not make neat, tidy cakes. It was $10. So it was $10 in a discount online thing, because I think, what was it? Oh, I was teaching a beginning knitting class, and I had to wind a whole bunch of yarn in 1 week, and so I like overnighted it from this discount thing because I was like, I need this right now. I need to get a better ball winder. I'm sure there are ones that it won't hold more than 50 grams of yarn. And it usually starts wrapping around the base, even like after like 25 grams. So it's really terrible. So these were caked up. I had to hand wind them again, but look at how different they are. But they're beautiful. The yarn is Miss Crosby, and it is a silk and superwash blend, and that's the Northern Perula. I don't know. Yeah, so I'm guessing these are DK weight because it's like 240 yards to 100 grams. It's definitely not heavy enough to be worsted. Or sport weight. I always get sport and DK mixed up as to which one is skinnier and which one's heavier. I know there's technically a rule for that, but this is lovely yarn to work with. I did get this in the last year's Tiny Owl Knits holiday Tokmas swap. It was in this amazing package of all the best goodies in the world. And my lovely swap partner sent it to me. It's definitely, I have to say though, it's nothing I would have picked out on my own, but it's knitting up beautifully. Usually I shy away from variegated yarns, but this, it's not pooling in any way. It's not looking funky in any way like I always worry about. It's just a nice overall speckled look. It's so soft. I never pick up things with silk, but like this is so soft and it's shiny and like, I don't know, swimmingly silky. Yeah, silky. That's what that word is. So anyways, I'm enjoying knitting with it a ton, and I'm really glad that she sent it, because I would have looked at this, I would have seen it in the skein, I would have been like, no. But it's so awesome. I don't know. I like it. I have not looked up this dyer yet to see what else is available out there. Partly because I'm not 100% sure that I would like look on the, I don't know if there's an Etsy or if it's just a website. Oh, there is a website, MsCrosbyPlays.com. I don't know if I would just look at it and be like, meh, just like I would have thought, but now I know I shouldn't think that way. I don't know. It's very nice yarn, and it's perfect for this pattern because you can see all the different colors, and you can see like the stitch definition really well. And I'm using size 7 needles with these. I don't like this brand. I think it's like I'm a mustache. I know a lot of the podcasters out there have been giving very good reviews to this brand, and if you like them, please have them. Please take all of them, because I think I will not buy any more of them. I bought them for a sweater because they were the only thing that was sitting in the yarn store. I usually use ChiaoGoo needles. They're my go-to. This one, the points are too blunt and the joins are too rough, and I do like this sort of plasticky material. Things move back and forth at probably a less slippery rate, which would be helpful, except for then it has a join with the metal thing, and I can feel there's a bump right there. I don't like joins in my needles. So there, I think is it Carbons? Carbons. Other knitters can have them. I will continue to use my ChiaoGoos. So that's the Sunlight Shawl for sad people. That's 2 knitting projects. Who knows when they'll finish? I mean, it might be good to keep this as a migraine project. I don't know what's up, but I keep getting more migraines than I'm used to, but they're part of life. I know genetically I will continue to have them because through the generations, all the ladies have gotten migraines. So wonderful, wonderful genetics I got there. But okay, so those were 2. Update on the Ursula cardigan is nothing's happened. Nothing's happened. It's still, I haven't even touched it. I couldn't work with that small of yarn, and I couldn't keep a pattern in my head, so oh well, I'll keep working on it. Maybe by next fall, because we're starting to move into warmness, which is nice because my feet have been cold for 6 months. Soon we'll be able to walk around without socks on, which is always fun. Free your toes, walk around like a hobbit. But the Ursula cardigan will probably be a next fall wearing thing. I hope it'll be worn next fall. Maybe that's a new goal. I don't want to give myself too many goals, because once I have a goal, I tend to like automatically break it just on principle. It's like I can't follow my own rules, but oh well. Okay, so I did start a different cardigan, a pullover, because I have this yarn. I love this brand of yarn so much. So much. I need to get some more of it. They're in this state. I just need to figure out how I can get there I don't drive, so I would have to like bribe a dear friend with food and cookies and lots of hugs and probably gas money to go run around the countryside trying to find some more of this yarn. So I did start a new sweater. The yarn I'm using is the Sestari brand yarn, which is, oh, their address is right here, Churchville, Virginia. I have no idea where that is. I don't know if that's close. It is not a zip code I recognize. Probably out towards the mountains or somewhere rural. I tend to stick to the 95 corridor. It's 100% wool. This is their natural color that I'm using, the sort of light gray. Yeah, here's, you can read traditional collection. Ah, I'm covering up everything, but I'm gonna drop it if I don't. It's almost greasy. Like, they barely got the lanolin out of this stuff. It is waterproof, you know. Not really, but it is great. I love it. It makes my hands so soft. It is a little weird because if you're used to using like this, the patterns, that's almost like, so can I interrupt myself? I'm going to interrupt myself. So I have a little bit of a wool thing that I like to think about when I'm picking out wool. I do consider myself a terrible yarn snob. I don't like, I cannot work with acrylic. I don't like cotton. I only like linen for thread, which I love linen thread, and I love linen fabric. I actually am not but so much of a fan of silk because some silks have an odor and I'm extremely sensitive to smells. But when it comes to yarn, the thing that I look at the most is how much it's been processed. So when I get something like Patons Kroy, I think of this as like the lowest of the barrel because, and this is what I would consider scratchy. I feel like it's just like all the wool has been kind of stripped. It's kind of, it's like it's been gone over with sandpaper. And that's what a lot of the Patons yarn feels like to me, and a lot of the not so nice wools, and a lot of superwash is like that. I don't like superwash for that reason, is because it doesn't feel like wool. It starts to feel like acrylic, and I really can't stand acrylic yarn. That being said, I'm always thankful for any yarn as gifts and all that. But if I'm thinking about dream yarn, stuff like this that's been barely processed, I mean, I'm pulling twigs out of it constantly. This is the softest feeling wool I've ever felt in my life. But I feel like when I've shown it to other knitters and a lot of people who are like used to superwash or who are used to like the, what is it, merino, cashmere, and nylon blends, or just like merino and not into a lot of the more rustic sheep breeds, this feels like sandpaper to them, and that always just drives me a little crazy because it's not. It's the like most beautiful, softest stuff. And there are other brands like this. Peace Fleece is a lot like this. I would be interested in some, I've never been able to get a hold of Brooklyn Tweed. I feel like it would be very similar. And some of the other, I guess, almost like woolen spun yarns and hand spun and all that. And I love those sort of softness. And yeah, that was my little yarn rant. And always, all knitters have their own preferences. My preferences are not your preferences, and I don't want to, while I will certainly try and try to spread the word of locally milled greasy yarn, I won't. I'm happy for everybody to knit with what they want to knit with, and more wool, just more wool, little less acrylic. Let's not pay the petroleum companies anymore. But yeah, more wool and all the wool, and it's lovely. So now that I've gone on and ranted about my absolute love of Sestari yarn, it smells so sheepy too. It smells just like sheep, like barnyard. I love it. It's beautiful. My coworkers will love me when I come into work wearing a sweater made out of it. Yeah, so I started a sweater. This is the back. It's I should tell you what pattern it is. So it's the what am I doing? Okay, Harrogate pattern by Amy Herzog, and it's a cabled pullover with some interesting waist shaping. I think it's maybe just how Amy Herzog does the waist shaping in all of her patterns. I have never done one before, so it's interesting for me. Pretty cables on the front. I will link the pattern in the little down bar thing. I am enjoying it so far. I mean, this is only 3 hours worth of knitting last night, which just pleases me. And I ripped it out once. So in those 3 hours, so probably only like 2 hours worth of knitting. This is the first time I've ever done I don't know where my camera is right now. There we go. Okay. A tubular cast on, which might be my new go-to. I like the sort of invisibleness of the cast on a lot, and it was not that difficult. And you sort of start off with like an extra ½ inch of ribbing already there that you didn't really do because that was still the cast on. So that might be for sweaters or whenever I'm starting with ribbing, not socks. Not doing that for socks, but like sweaters or something like that. I'm definitely gonna do that. Now the pattern did call for a twisted rib. I can't, I'm not a twisted rib girl. I did try it because I haven't done it that often, but it gave it that look like the rib had been so stretched out and like you know those Goodwill sweaters from like the 80s that are made out of acrylic and just don't look like they ever had any stretch or anything in the rib. And I was like, no, I don't want my wool to look like that. So when I do the front, I think the twisted rib leads into some of the cabling on the front. So I'll have to make some big decisions there. I might just still do a regular 1x1 rib because I like how smooshy it is. Like, look, it's a smush. And the stretch. That's what I like. So I'm excited for this pattern. I feel like it might be the next sweater finish because it'll be so fast. Using Addie's that I got a million years ago. Size 8. I am doing a different size. I was trying to work out the math and I got a little bit frustrated, but I think I know how big I want the back panel to be. And I know how to get the back panel to be the size that I want the back panel to be. So we're starting with that. And I'm making sure to take notes on my pattern and say where I've mixed things up, changed things, the numbers that I'm using on the back to make sure that I have the same. The only thing that really is important, of course, I mean, the most important thing is to make sure that like I use the same number of rows on the back as the front, because otherwise you're gonna get like it's gonna be hard to seam and you don't want to have a weird pucker somewhere. So I oops, sorry, foot's falling asleep. So I am keeping notes of how many rows I add, if I add rows anywhere, because I do want it a little longer than the pattern is too. So those are the works in progress I have right now. For knitting, I have one more thing to show y'all in terms of craftiness. But yeah, it's been, I mean, I feel like I've been kind of productive. Even when I was feeling like I couldn't really get out of bed and do anything, I was still able to work on the Sunlight shawl, which made me quite happy. because there's nothing worse than being stuck somewhere and bored, but unable to do very much. That always drives me crazy because, you know, if I can't knit and I really don't do a lot of TV. I mean, I watch a lot of stuff while I knit, but if I don't have knitting to do while I'm watching it, I get extremely frustrated. So while I love my gardening television and of course watching podcasts, but I supplement that with like beautiful pictures of other people's gardens with some helpful tips on how to grow gardenias. That's my guilty pleasure. If my hands aren't doing something, it's a little weird. So, and even then, sometimes you just have to turn the TV off. Or I guess my laptop. It's not a TV, it's a laptop, but that's okay. I think most people my age just use a laptop as their media hub. All right, so let me have another cup of tea. I didn't do show notes. I found that I did not. They were having to write something down first was stressing me out, and I didn't want to stop because I was too stressed. I think I've been trying to be very much like extremely fancy, and I don't need to be fancy. I can talk about knitting. We can talk about knitting. Okay, so let me show you my other work in progress. It's kind of gonna be like an ongoing project for a long time, but it's something that I just had the call to pick back up, and sometimes I listen to that. So, let me see. Okay. I have in this bucket exciting things. So, what I have been doing is taking all of my scraps of fabric and making, look, there's a hedgehog, making fun little English paper pieced, what other fabrics do I have in here? Oh, that one's pretty. English paper piece little hexagons. I have not started sewing them together. I'm just covering the paper. And I have a whole big stack of scraps that I've sort of pre-cut. And oh, I do have some batik ones from, I took the papers out of these, but you can still piece them together. That's a pretty batik one. I don't know why I started a batik. One of these, I actually don't like batiks too much. But I'm using the 3/4 inch size hexagons, which you can cut out your own. They're not that expensive to buy a big pack of them at a quilt store. And then you wrap the fabric around, so there's the back of one. And then sort of tack it down. You don't go through the paper. You just tack it down so that you can then sort of pull the paper out when you're done. And then you stick 2 of them together and you whip stitch along the edge, and then they fold out and you have them attached. And then you can do the sort of grandmother's flower garden is the most traditional quilt top with hexagons. There are tons of different ways you can put them together though. You can do diamonds, you can do just like rows of them. I don't know what I'm going to do with these hexagons. It's not going to be a full-size quilt because no, I don't want to make a quilt, but I do like the little hand stitching, and I have boxes upon boxes upon boxes of fabric. I have so much fabric, and most of it's like little scraps because I've always kept my scraps. I don't have all the different garment size pieces of fabric that I could have. I might make up some little bags, some for gifts, some totes, even just put like a stripe of a hexagon pieced thing and then make a tote around it. I doubt I will ever sell on Etsy. That's way too much. I can't commit to that much work. Um, I'll like make one bag and then make the Etsy shop and then forget to put the bag in the Etsy shop. That's not my person. I just can't do that with my personality type. I'm too little too scattered, always trying to move on to the next thing, get something done, but then yeah. But that's my current sort of handwork project going on. Yeah, that's I think those are all my works in progress. I've been going on here for quite a while, but I did have one more thing I wanted to talk about. So I have not made a Ravelry group yet. I'm not sure when that'll happen. I was a little bit detached from Ravelry for the past few weeks, not really intentionally. I just kept forgetting to go on it, and then I got all weird and was like, I need to remember my Ravelry password, which I did, and I logged back on, and nothing changed. Well, more beautiful patterns were posted, but yeah, so I'm not sure I feel like I can moderate a Ravelry group because I don't get on there often enough anymore. Like when I was working part-time, I would spend a couple hours on there every day. Now, when I get home, I don't have the energy to go be social online as much as I used to, which is really sad because I have people I need to message and talk to. But I just think maybe while there is still a possibility of a Ravelry group, it's not happening quite yet. I need to get myself together. I need to get myself organized and not stress about it and not have that be holding me back from recording future podcasts because, yeah. But feel free to message me on Ravelry. I do glance at it on my phone every so often, and I usually get on at least once a week now. So, yeah, there's no Ravelry group, but I do want to share that sort of just another, I don't want to call it a segment. It's not going to happen every time. But just a new thing I thought I'd share with you. My biggest sort of interest and passion when it comes to knitting textiles is the history behind knitting and textiles and sort of the lost arts of all of that. So this week at the library, I found out that my library system has one of my favorite knitting history books that I've only gotten a few chapters into because the last library system I worked at, we had it, but me and this other lady were like playing past the book back and forth, and so I'd put it on hold and she would have it, and then I'd have to wait for her to turn it in, which didn't always happen on time, and then I would get it and I would read it for like the 2 weeks that I had out, and then I was, as an employee, you got fussed at if you didn't turn your books in time. So I would turn it back in, and then she'd have it, and I'd put it back on hold, but then I'd have to wait for her to turn it back in. And this went on for like a good 6 months. And I don't know. I still, it's a good book. That's why we share. That's what the library's there for, is sharing. But this is it. Ooh, that's a bad glare. Okay. This is The History of Hand Knitting by, can you see that? Richard Rutt. And this is a great book. It's an older title. I think it was written in the 70s. Let me see if I can find a publication date. Oh, no, 1987. So not as old as the 70s, about 10 years after that. And it just goes through so much of knitting history and like where it started. And I mean, they have a whole section here on the English word to knit, which is pretty awesome. I maybe should have pulled out a quote or something. I didn't. It's okay. See if your library has this book. And yeah, so it's just like really well in depth, and I just wanted to share. This is a good resource for somebody who is interested in knitting history. Is one of the more sort of like big deal ones, not the only knitting history out there, and not the only good book on the cultural significance of knitting. Um, but I'm looking forward to really delving in. We have a longer checkout period here in Henrico, and as long as I don't start playing like hold tag with somebody, I can have it for up to 3 months before I have to turn it back in. So that'll be a good deal. So there's your little. That's my librarian resource for knitting. I might see if I can try and in the future find a really good resource book for knitting, textiles, historical knitting, textile history, all of that if I can. And yeah, there are definitely some good books out there. And since it's been my goal for quite a while to really become an expert in this, like, this is my hobby. I want to be an expert like the one weird customer, not weird, one lovely, interesting customer who comes in and just can tell me their entire family history back to like 1432. I want to have that, but with knitting. Like, I want to know who sat where at which tabletop for knitting. You know, like, I love it. Another thing I'm really interested in is bobbin lace, which is wonderful, and I love it so much. And I love the lace, and I love how it looks, and I love the creation of it. It does make me really sad because I'm having a lot of trouble finding people to teach me. I need to work with another human learner, and there aren't. Most of the people I have met who've done lace, nobody's been my age at all. And most people I've met have been in their late 70s or 80s. I've met some women who are sort of in between there, but it's making me sad because if I'm the only person I've ever met that's my age, at least here on the East Coast, and most people when I talk about it, they're like, what is that? What's gonna happen, you know? I don't want to be the last lace maker ever, and I right now I wouldn't even consider myself one because I don't have anybody to teach me how to do it. I know a little bit. I've done a little bit, but I feel like I'm struggling because it's so different. It's not like knitting, it's not like crochet. I don't know, it's hard to describe. So if you all know any good lace making resources, I'd love to know them. And I'd love to know that there are other people out there that are going to keep this art going on, because the book resources, which I have a few, are not enough to. They would make it very difficult for somebody to, in 200 years, if all they had left were books, it'd make it a little difficult for them to pick it back up and figure it out. So, okay. Well, alrighty then. I think I've talked for quite a while. I feel like I've rambled on. I feel like I've missed stuff, and I don't really know what's going on. Yeah, no interesting library news. I did get to go work at a new branch this week, which is awesome. We do this thing where we can, a couple times a year, swap a shift and go work at another branch, which means I get to meet new people and see new customers that I haven't met, and still get to do awesome things and learn about how the rest of the system works, which is great. And I got to do that this week. Not much going on, preparing for a lot of classes around here at the library. So, yeah. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for putting up with me. And for my sporadic updates, it'll probably be when I get the nerve again. I'm not even going to promise anything this go round. Yeah, you all are wonderful. Have a lovely afternoon with happy knitting and warmer tea than mine, which has totally gone cold. I'll have to go make another pot of tea. Thank you all. Lots of love, lots of yarn and woolly goodness, and happy knitting.